What are aspects of developing a suitable advertising metaphor? 1. Okay, this is what I imagine would be a brief to an advertising creative team. Decide on the attributes of the product or the service that need to be emphasized. Secondly, find a source domain or an input space in which those attributes are saliently present. 3, emphasize the formal similarity between the product and the source domain. That would be representable in the generic space. And then, if necessary, create a motivation for the co-presence of target and source. And then create a scenario in which the desired attributes are cued. And choose in what modes or modalities the metaphorically pertinent information is to be presented. And the modalities in my book are written language, spoken language, visuals, gestures, sound, and music. Okay, we can discuss whether these need to be further subdivided or need to be added to, but okay, for present purposes, that suffices. Here's an example, one of my oldest ones, and one of my most favorite ones, actually. And I have to tell you that Artis is the Amsterdam Zoo, right? And I love this one, so I take any opportunity to show it, even though it's one of my oldest examples. Okay, what are the promotable attributes? Right? What needs to be ended up in the blended space? Visit Artis Zoo, right? That is what it needs to do. What is the source domain? What is the input space that is going to supply the interesting features? Well, obviously that is the famous Mona Lisa in the Louvre. What is the formal similarity between the two? Well, at least minimally, both are close-ups. And of course the other thing is the enigmatic smile, right? What is the conceptual scenario? Well, it's worth visiting. Just as the Mona Lisa in the Louvre is worth visiting, so is this wonderful orangutan in Artis, which, by the way, is just a few streets down the road. You needn't go all the way from Amsterdam to the Louvre. It's close by. And what are the modalities used here? Language and visuals. They're both crucial, right? If you strip away either of them, the metaphor gets lost. Okay, here's another example. It was a whole series of IBM billboards and advertisements from the 90s, actually. And so what here, I mean, the upper one is actually a billboard and the other one is part of an advertisement. But you can see they were used even without any body copy. What are the promotable attributes? Well, in the upper one, clearly it is safety, right? This is a beacon in a wild sea, and in the bottom one, it is the crucial linking device. So what's the source domain in this case? The beacon and the pin in the bottom one. What's the formal? How is the formal similarity created? Both by the color, the white and blue stripes, and by the design which links IBM to these objects. And of course, and the campaign is much more extensive, so there's a lot more examples here. And what's the conceptual scenario? Well, you could say necessity. Just as the beacon in sea is absolutely necessary for navigating, just as the pin is essential to get this device together, so is IBM necessary for your company. And what are the modes used? Language and visuals. Okay, now let's bring in a few other modes into commercials. And they're both Dutch, so I think there will be about 2 people in this room who will understand the spoken language, or the spoken modality, but it would be interesting to see how much you get just looking and listening. But I'll translate anyway. Designed with a vision. Developed with passion. There's sensation of every moment, strokes all senses. 3 years old and already a legend, at least in the kitchen. So this is a coffee making machine, and indeed within a few years' time, sales exploded. So that's why they were able to claim the idea of a legend, at least in the kitchen. Okay, so. What are the promotable attributes here? Well, what's to be promoted is the classic status, right? I mean, already a legend, even after 3 years. What's the source domain? What's the input space that provides the interesting features? I would say, well, it's motorbikes, right? And of course we are cued to see and experience motorbikes both by the visuals and by the kick-starting motor. But it's not just your average motorbike, it is the motorbikes that we all, at least some of us who are old enough or are cultish enough to know about the Easy Rider film where Fonda and Hopper rode these bicycles. So all the connotations that adhere to that song and that film, that cult film, are potentially mapped onto the coffee machine. What's the formal similarity? Well, it's on a visual level, it's the close-ups of the metallic elements and the button and the droplet, which we first think is a piece of oil and then turns out just a drop of coffee. What's the conceptual scenario? There's an S missing there. It's the legend, right? I mean, this is a legendary film. It's a legendary song by Steppenwolf, Born to be Wild. And what are the modes used here? Not just visuals and not just language, but also music and sound. Without the sound, we would probably see, okay, the source domain is a machine, but we wouldn't cue motorbike. It's the kickstart sound, the non-verbal sound, that cues us into knowing, okay, this is not just a machine, it is a motorbike. And the music, of course, brings in all the Easy Rider, free, wild 60s atmosphere that supposedly we're going to map onto this exciting coffee machine. Okay, here's another example.
In ons nieuwste iglo-gerecht zitten maiskolfjes en narikoffers. Een combinatie van jong en knapperig. En wat mag er bij deze heugelijke gebeurtenis niet ontbreken? Precies. En die maken samen met kipfilet en sojasaus de heerlijke nieuwe iglo-maaltijd.
Okay, now, even though most of you will not have understood the language, I hope you get the basic idea, and that is the marriage between the bean and the corn cob, right? They are anthropomorphized, and the marriage, of course, they are new ingredients in this new iglo dish, which has rice, because interestingly, the presence of the rice has been quasi-motivated by the fact that, at least in Holland and I think in other European countries, you throw rice at a married couple, right? So there is that kind of motivation. So what are the promotable attributes? Well, presumably, okay, Iglo developed this new dish, vegetables plus rice, as a new combination. What's the source domain? Wedding. What's the formal similarity? Well, there's the personification, right? We see the two vegetables move like humans would. There's the kissing and the rice. And I would say, I didn't see that at first when I first watched it, but the package actually looked like a church. And I didn't notice that until a second or third viewing, and of course it is the wedding march that cues that. Otherwise we would just say, oh, it's just standing vertically, but now it's a church. And what's the conceptual scenario? Belonging together, presumably. What are the modes? Visuals, language, music, and sound. Okay, so just a brief survey. There's the input input space 1, that's the product given. There's the blend, that is what needs to be achieved, and then there is the other input space that is supposedly going to provide the creative solution. Right, well, this is a short summary of it.